Welcome to Stories by Grandma. I'm excited to do this one today. This one's really fun. I had fun researching this one. During our courtship and throughout our first years of our married life, my husband Ted told me about his adventures traveling the United States. He has been so many more places than I have. One place he told me about was Meteor Crater, and he told me how he had been there on a summer trip with his buddy of his in 1968. The summer between his first and second year of college. He has photos to prove this. Ted and his buddy Jim were so ambitious that they hiked down to the bottom of the crater and stumbled upon a wreckage of a small plane. They discovered when they got back up to the top of the rim that the wreckage could not be seen from the observation deck. This sounded very interesting to me, and I had to know what Meteor Crater was. Meteor Crater is about 40 miles east of Flagstaff and 18 miles west of Winslow on the desert of northern Arizona. This site had been discovered by pioneers moving west. They called it Canyon Diablo Crater after the adjacent town of Canyon Diablo. The pioneers thought it had been caused by a volcano because the United States Board of Geographic Names recognizes names of natural features derived from the nearest post office. This feature acquired the name of Meteor Crater from the nearby post office in a little town named Meteor. The first geological report on the gigantic crater in 1891 focused not on the crater itself, but on tiny diamonds found in nearby rocks. Back then, researchers assumed that only an explosive volcano eruption could make such a large crater. But after more careful study of the altered rocks in and around the crater, scientists realized that it must have been formed by a massive meteorite impact. The story of Meteor Crater, also called Barringer Crater, began 50,000 years ago with an asteroid hurtling to Earth that weighed 300,000 tons and traveled at the speed of about 30,000 miles per hour. The explosive force of its impact can be equally compared to the eruption of Mount St. Helens. It blasted out 175 million tons of limestone and sandstone, sprayed molten rock upward, and tossed chunks of meteorite several miles away. The impact occurred during the last ice age, a time when Arizona's landscape was cooler and wetter than it is today. The plain around it was covered with forest where mammoths, mastodons, and giant ground sloths grazed. The force of the impact would have leveled the forest for miles around, hurling the mammoths across the plain and killing or severely injuring any animal unfortunate enough to be nearby. Over time, the landscape recovered. The lake formed in the bottom of the crater, and sediments accumulated until the bowl was only 550 feet deep. Then, with the ending of the Ice Age, the climate changed and dried. The desert that we see today has helped to preserve the crater by limiting the erosion that might otherwise have blurred or erased the traces of the ancient impact. Meteor Crater lies at an elevation of 5,640 feet above sea level. It is about 3,900 feet in diameter, some 560 feet deep, and is surrounded by a rim that rises 148 feet above the surrounding plains. The center of the crater is filled with about 700 feet of rubble lying above crater bedrock. One of the interesting features of the crater is its squared-off outline, believed to be caused by existing cracks in the strata at the impact site. Despite historic attempts to make the crater a public landmark, the crater remains privately owned by the Barringer family to the present day through the Barringer Crater Company, which proclaims it to be the best preserved meteorite crater on Earth. Since the crater is privately owned, it is not protected as a national monument, a status that would require federal ownership. It was designated a National Natural Landmark in November of 1970. Ted said that we would go there, and we did. We have visited Meteor Crater several times over the years. One time, as we were going through the museum, we saw a large rock on display. I noticed that the rock was called the HOLSINGER meteorite. Remembering back to my research of the Holsingers in my family, I had to know more. Why was it called HOLSINGER meteorite? I researched and I found this information. In 1902, a Samuel Joseph Holsinger worked for the U.S. Forestry Service, and while at a hotel stay in Tucson, Arizona, ran into Daniel Moreau Barringer, a lawyer and mining engineer from Holsinger's home state of Pennsylvania. Holsinger told Barringer about the crater and the iron fragments he had found there. Barringer knew nothing about it and was so shocked that he dropped his cigar and asked, "Why didn't I know about this?" Barringer later suspected that the crater was formed by a meteor strike and believed valuable deposits of iron and nickel were waiting to be mined just below the surface of the floor of the crater. Since it was originally owned by the United States government, which believed the land to be useless, Barringer was granted a mining claim, entitling him to own 2 square miles of land that included Meteor Crater. Barringer, along with Holsinger and his partner Benjamin C. Tilghman, formed the Standard Iron Corporation to mine the site. During one of their first explorations, Holsinger discovered the largest meteorite on the site. Now I had to know more about Samuel Holsinger. Was I related to him, and if so, how? Here is what I found out through the hours of research. Samuel Joseph Holsinger was born 4th of March, 1859 in Libertyville, Iowa. He was the second child and only son of Joseph and Mary Ann Peebler Holsinger. On the 21st of August in 1887 in South Bend, Indiana, he married his second cousin, Charlotte Temple Holsinger. They had 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. They moved to California, Sacramento to be exact, and Samuel went to work for the United States Forestry Service. They lived in Sacramento until about 1900, when his job transferred him to Arizona Territory, and thus he found the crater in 1902. He stayed working for the Forestry Department in the Bureau of Chemistry, which helped him in his research of Meteor Crater. Sometime during his stay in Arizona, he picked up the deadly tuberculosis, and on the 5th of August, 1911, he succumbed to it. He is buried in the Oddfellow Cemetery in Sacramento, California. Charlotte joined him there in 1957. Yes, he is related. He's my second cousin 3 times removed. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.